All right, let's talk about a word you've probably never heard of, but a feeling you know all too well. We're diving into the history of a word that is, I promise you, the perfect way to describe a very specific and very common kind of frustration.
So think about it for a second. What do you call that feeling, that slow burn frustration from a problem that's not a huge deal, but it just will not go away? We've got words like annoying or irritating, but they don't quite hit the nail on the head, do they?
I'm talking about things like that one software bug that you have to deal with every single day, or being on hold, listening to that same terrible music over and over, that wobbly cafe table that threatens your coffee with every move. These things aren't disasters, right? But man, they just chip away at your sanity.
Well, there is a word for it, and it's perfect. The word is Nurgily. It's the absolute best adjective for that specific, simmering frustration. My internet connection is just so Nurgily today. I'm trapped in this Nurgily feedback loop at work. See? It just fits.
Okay, so a word that's so perfect for our modern world, for buffering videos or endless software updates, you'd think it has to be new, right? Something cooked up on the internet, some clever slang.
Yeah, not even close. And this is where the story takes a really cool turn. The magic of Nurgily isn't that it's new, it's that it's incredibly old and has been waiting for us to find it again.
So to really understand this word, you got to come on a little journey with me. We're going to go from the rough seas of the 1600s to some dusty archives in the 20th century, all the way back to the screen you're staring at right now. Because this word wasn't born in Silicon Valley. It was forged in the cold, salty, and relentlessly difficult conditions of the North Sea. So picture this. It's the early 1600s. We're with a very specific group of people, sailors and fishermen who spoke this little-known dialect called Nurgilian. And like with any group of people, their language was shaped by their lives. And what was life like for them? Well, it was one constant, low-grade problem after another. Forget pirates and sea monsters. The real daily struggle was just damp clothes that never dried, a constant drip, drip, drip from a leak, and, this is the important one, food that was just barely good enough to eat. Their entire life was defined by the bothersome. So these sailors, they needed a word for this feeling, and what they did was pretty brilliant. They basically smashed two older words together. Let's take a look at the linguistic DNA here. This is so cool. The word is made of two parts that capture the whole experience. First, you've got nunra from Old Norse. That's the internal feeling, the quiet grumble, the complaining under your breath. And then you have gaelth from Middle English, which is the external feeling, something sharp or bitter. They stuck them together to describe the number one most persistent annoyance in their lives, their food. Rations that weren't totally rotten, but were just off. They made you grumble inside, gnora, because they tasted bitter and sharp. Gale. The food was, quite literally, gnora gale. And you know how language works, right? People get lazy. We smooth things out. Over the years, that clunky gnora gale just naturally eroded. It became Nurgle, and then eventually the simple, elegant adjective we have today, Nurgily. But as that dialect disappeared, so did the word. It was basically lost to time. That is, until our hero of the story, a fictional linguist from the 20th century, stumbled upon it and brought it back. Her name was Dr. Alara Nurgily, and her entire field of study was something called aesthetolingualism, which is just a fancy way of saying she studied words that perfectly sound like the feeling they describe. She found Nurgily in some old ship logs and instantly knew she'd struck gold. Her whole theory was that the word is the feeling. I mean, just say it out loud. Nurgily. That first part, nur, it's kind of like a low grumble, right? An internal frustration. And then it's hit with that sharp little gilly at the end. It's like a tiny little sting. The sound is a perfect match. So Dr. Nurgily started championing the word. She argued that our modern lives are just as filled with these little frustrations as a sailor's life was back then. Our buffering videos are just their version of spoiled rations. We needed this word back. And what happened is a classic example of what's called semantic drift. The word's meaning just expanded. It's not just for bad food anymore. Now it can be used for any persistent low-grade annoyance that just slowly grinds you down. And that right there is the key. That's what makes this word so special. A truly Nurgily problem is not a big, life-threatening disaster. It is, however, completely and utterly life-draining.
So when you use this word, you're doing more than just describing something. You're taking part in this tiny, elegant rebellion. You're connecting to centuries of other humans who've been frustrated by the exact same kind of little, soul-crushing problems.
It feels good, right? To finally have the right word, the perfect weapon, for one of life's most common battles. So the only question left is, what's the first Nurgily thing in your life that you're going to call out?